I'm making this video in part because I have a lot of friends who say they want to oil paint, but they don't know enough about oil painting techniques. Now, this is one of the most crucial parts of oil painting is brush maintenance. Now you have less of an excuse. I'm going to show you how to properly care for your oil brushes. Now, oil and water don't mix, and I'm a firm believer in not mixing your oil paints with soap and water, which is what some artists do when they have a heavy-duty clean job. But I never like to mix water and oil. I'm using several different things here. I'm using turpentine, which thins paint. You use this with oil paint. Turpentine is a very gentle cleaner, so it keeps your brushes from getting really damaged when you're using this particular solvent, which is your go-to for most artists. And one thing that you never want to do is leave your brushes soaking in turpentine, because these brushes will eventually start to lose their hair, and the hairs will come unglued from the ferrule. So this is why you have hairs coming out of this brush, because I left it to sit too long in turpentine. I'm using olive oil and linseed oil. Now, turpentine, while it is a solvent, does the same thing as the linseed oil, just to a lesser degree. Now, a lot of artists will use linseed oil when they're cleaning their brushes, but instead of using a non-drying oil, like olive oil or coconut oil, they use linseed oil. What this does is it causes your brushes to become frayed over time. That is why I use a non-drying oil. People will mix their drying oils and non-drying oils while conditioning their brushes. This is a thing that I don't typically do, but I am trying to experiment with a few different ways to clean my brushes and condition them. My hypothesis is that the intermingling between the 2-to-1 non-drying oil to drying oil ratio will help keep my paintbrush from getting too greasy, but it will also condition it at the same time. You can use various non-drying oils like olive oil. Some people use coconut oil. The olive oil that I'm using today is unrefined. A lot of the olive oil and coconut oils that you find in the store will be refined and processed. You want to get the purest stuff possible. This is super fancy pants olive oil from a grove in Italy that Bill got me for my birthday. Now, I'm only using a teeny tiny little bit of this to clean my brushes with it because I want to use it for eating. The first thing you want to do is wipe the excess paint off of your brush. I like to dampen a cloth with turpentine, just a little bit, because it helps get some of that excess paint off. You don't want to pull on your brush because you can pull some of the fibers out. Oh, I just destroyed this whole brush. There's no hair left. The next thing you want to do is dip your brush in your first jar of turpentine, your dirty turpentine. Don't push down too hard, and gently wipe clean. You should see some of the paint still left behind, but most of it should be gone. Next, you want to dip your paintbrush in your second, smaller jar of clean turpentine. Swish it around a little bit gently. You don't want to aggravate the bristles and push down on the brush when you mix. Again, wipe clean with a clean cloth, and you should see most of that paint is gone. The next thing you want to do is dip your brush in some of your oil, your dirty oil. And when you dip your brush in the oil, you want to heavily saturate it so the paint can get in the brush and work through. You probably still have a little bit of paint coming off of your brush, so this will help to loosen up anything that might be trapped in there. Again, wipe clean gently, and you should start to see a lot of that paint let loose from your brush. Wipe clean gently and dip in your clean turpentine once more. Make sure that's thoroughly wiped down. Then you want to coat your brush in your oil. Lightly, don't saturate it as you did before. Just wipe off any of the excess and use your fingers to shape your brush. Always store your brushes flat. What this does is it prevents those bristles from falling and becoming irregular if you're trying to maintain a definite shape. This might feel a little bit like a lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. There are way too many steps here. I'm not going to do all of those steps, absolutely not. Doesn't take that long. Suck it up. Now, the reason you want to go through the painstaking process of trying to preserve your brushes is because the brushes are very expensive. Any good artist knows getting a good collection of brushes will rack you up a few bucks. So don't throw your money in the toilet. Preserve your brushes instead of buying new ones. When you use a lot of turpentine, it is important to not dump turpentine down the sink. Don't dump your oils and don't dump your turpentine down the sink. It causes problems, I promise you. Another fun fact about turpentine is it will get you high. So make sure you use a tight-fitting lid on any turpentine you have lying around, especially if you have animals or small children. Also, make sure you open a window when you're doing oil painting or you're in a well-ventilated studio. I definitely don't always do that. Do as I say, not as I do. Rags should also be disposed of properly. One fun thing about certain kinds of solvents is they can combust if they get hot enough. So if you leave a solvent-covered rag in your shed, it can actually catch fire in the summertime. Something I also learned the hard way.